Before China was China, it was a tapestry of warring states, a chaotic battlefield of kings and warlords that had bled for over 200 years. From this brutal crucible, one man would emerge to conquer them all, to unify a nation, and to create an empire. But his ambition did not end with the conquest of his rivals. It was a war against a much greater enemy, death itself. This is the code behind Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor, the man who built an empire for eternity. His story begins as Ying Zhang, a prince of the state of Qin. When he ascended to the throne at the age of just 13, he inherited a state already primed for conquest. His early years were marked by brutal court intrigue, including a plot involving his own mother and her lover, which he crushed with merciless efficiency. Guided by his chief minister, the pragmatist Li Si, he unleashed the full might of the Qin war machine. One by one, the other 6 states fell. By 221 BC, the wars were over. The land was unified. The 26-year-old king, Ying Zhang, now needed a new title. He declared himself Qin Shi Huang, the first sovereign emperor. The nation of China was born. His next act was to forge this new, vast territory into a single, unified state. This was a project of unprecedented scale and brutal efficiency. He abolished the old feudal systems and divided the empire into 36 commanderies, all ruled by officials loyal only to him. He standardized everything: a single currency, a single system of weights and measures, and, most importantly, a single, unified writing script. This standardization was the software that would run the hardware of his new empire, a code that would bind China together for millennia. The philosophy that drove this brutal efficiency was legalism, an ideology championed by his minister, Li Si. Legalism argued that human nature was fundamentally selfish and that the only way to govern was through absolute state control, strict laws, and severe, inescapable punishments. It rejected the moralistic and family-focused teachings of Confucianism. For Qin Shi Huang, this philosophy was the perfect tool. It justified his absolute power and provided the ideological framework for the total control he sought to exert over every aspect of his new empire. Any who opposed this new order were dealt with ruthlessly. The most infamous example of his tyranny was the burning of books and burying of scholars. To eliminate all competing philosophies and make history begin with him, Qin Shi Huang ordered the destruction of countless historical and philosophical texts from the old states. According to the historian Sima Chen, over 460 scholars who dared to defy this order were buried alive. It was a war on knowledge, an attempt to erase the past. Parallel to this, he began the most ambitious construction projects in human history. And to defend its northern border from the Xiongnu tribes, he commanded the connection and expansion of existing fortifications into a single colossal wall, the precursor to what we now know as the Great Wall of China. The scale of the Great Wall project was terrifying. Hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions, of soldiers, convicts, and conscripted peasants were sent to work in the harshest conditions imaginable. They faced brutal terrain, extreme weather, and constant threat of attack from nomadic tribes. Food was scarce, and discipline was enforced with an iron fist. It is said that so many workers died during its construction that the wall became known as the longest cemetery on Earth, with the bodies of the dead buried within the structure itself. For the emperor, the cost in human lives was irrelevant. And it was this obsession with eternity that consumed his later years. Qin Shi Huang became terrified of death. He sent expeditions in search of the mythical elixir of life, including a massive fleet of ships sent to find the legendary island of the immortals. He fell prey to alchemists and mystics who promised him immortality. When the search for eternal life failed, he began work on his final, most incredible project, a tomb, a microcosm of his entire empire, designed to house him for his eternal afterlife. For over 36 years, 700,000 laborers worked to construct this silent, underground palace. It was filled with replicas of his palaces, and its ceiling was a map of the heavens, studded with pearls to represent the stars. Rivers of mercury were made to flow, mimicking the Yangtze and Yellow rivers. The description of these Mercury Rivers was long thought to be a mere legend, but modern science has revealed a terrifying truth. Soil samples taken from the earth mound above the still unopened tomb show abnormally high concentrations of mercury, suggesting that the ancient records written by Sima Qian were not fantasy, but fact. This massive quantity of liquid mercury would not only have simulated the empire's waterways, but was also a key component in ancient Chinese alchemy, believed to be a substance connected to immortality. The emperor was literally planning to float for eternity on a river of life-giving poison. The tomb itself, the final resting place of the first emperor, remains sealed to this day, a mystery protected by legends of deadly booby traps. But guarding this eternal kingdom is an army unlike any other, the Terracotta Army. Over 8,000 life-sized soldiers, each with a unique face, along with hundreds of chariots and horses, all sculpted from clay and arranged in battle formation. The level of detail is astonishing. Each warrior was once brightly painted, and they were armed with real, functional bronze weapons, so perfectly crafted that they were still sharp when they were unearthed 2 millennia later. This was not a mere collection of statues. It was a fully equipped, silent army, a perfect replica of the emperor's real-world forces, ready to continue his conquests in the spirit realm. The purpose was clear. Even in death, Qin Shi Huang would be a commander. In the end, his quest for immortality is what killed him. It is believed he died from mercury poisoning after ingesting immortality pills prescribed by his alchemists. The first emperor, the man who unified a nation and tried to conquer death itself, died at the age of 49 during a tour of his Eastern Empire. His death sparked immediate chaos. To prevent a rebellion, his chief minister Li Si and the powerful eunuch Zhao Gao concealed his death for 2 months as his entourage traveled back to the capital. They had carts of rotting fish follow the emperor's carriage to mask the smell of his decomposing body. During this time, they forged a new will, forcing the emperor's capable eldest son and heir, Fusu, to commit suicide, and installing a younger, weaker son on the throne as a puppet. The great unifier's death immediately gave way to the very same kind of treacherous plotting he had spent his life crushing. His eternal empire, the Qin dynasty, would collapse in chaos just a few years after his death, but the code he created, the idea of a single unified China, would endure, and the silent clay army he left behind would ensure his name and his obsession with eternity would never be forgotten. And that is the architecture of the reign of Qin Shi Huang. Remember, history is more than a story, it's a code, and there is always another layer to decrypt. Subscribe and continue the investigation with us.